But yeah, this is MPV, commit to MPV repo from November 12, 2017. The title is Stream libarchive Workaround various types of locale brain death. Trigger warning, it will have some strong language. So I warned you. Fix that libarchive fails to return file names for UTF-8, UTF-16 entries. The reason is that it uses locales and all that garbage, and MPV does not set a locale. Both C-locales and W-char-T are shit-fucked retarded legacy brain death. If the C/POSIX standard committee had actually competent members, this would have been deprecated or removed long ago. I mean, they managed to remove get-s, after all, you know. To justify this emotional outbreak potentially insulting to unknown persons, I will write a lot of text. Those not comfortable with toxic language should not pretend this is a religious text. You've been warned. C locales are supposed to be a way to support certain languages and cultures easier. One examples are character code pages. Back when UTF-8 was not invented yet, there were only 255 possible characters, which is not enough for anything but English and some European languages. European lowercase, I am so offended right now. So they decided to make the meaning of a character dependent on the current code page. The locale LC type specifically determines what character encoding is currently used. Of course, nowadays, this is legacy nonsense. Everything uses UTF-8 for char, and what doesn't is broken and terrible anyway. But the old ways stayed with us, and the stupidity of it as well. You said not pretend. Pretend, yeah, sorry. Should pretend this is, sorry. I completely changed the meaning. But yeah, C locales were utterly moronic. Utterly moronic. Can you imagine the pain this person had to go through while working on this? Like C locales totally broke him. C locales were utterly moronic even when they were invented. The locale via setlocale is global state, and global state is not a reasonable way to do anything. It will break libraries or well-modularized code. The latter would be forced to strictly guard all entry points. Set restore locales, assuming a single threaded world. Yes, and in Focus, when I did that, I was also kind of worried about like, what about locales, you know? And actually, the majority of the code doesn't even fucking bother. So what we do in the Focus, we kind of pop locale, right? We get the old locale, the current one that the application got loaded with, right? We try our best to set new locale, right? We try to set it to... we try to set it from like... where is it? Yeah. From an empty string. And we hope that it will be magically all right. And if it somehow fail, then we try to kind of do those, as I already kind of went through it, all sorts of crap to set the correct one. And then at the end, where's the defer? There was like a defer block. Yeah, and at the end of this function, we set locale to old locale, right? So we kind of pop it, do the thing, and then show it back. And I mean, most programs just do that. They don't even care about thread safety of all this locale nonsense, because like hopefully new software just doesn't use it at all. Yeah, you do the same logic. That's what most people do. And, you know, we just hope that modern software just doesn't use it, you know? Just please, you know, use libxkb common or something, right? We just hope everyone uses libxkb common and live happily ever after. But yeah, not back in 2017. Of course Go wouldn't care about it because it's stupid. But anyway, this rant is about what? Libarchive, right? So where did we stop? Yeah. On top of that, setting a locale randomly changes. This is so stupid. The semantics of a bunch of standard functions. Yeah, all of the function, you know, that commas inside of the floating point numbers, date formatting, many formatting, all of that fucking breaks. If a function respects locale, you suddenly can't rely on it to behave the same on all systems. Yes, some behavior can come as a surprise. And of course, it will be dependent on the region of the user. It doesn't help that most software is US-centric and the US locale is almost like the C locale. In other words, almost what you expect. Idiotically, locales were not just used to define the current character encoding, but the concept was used for a whole lot of things, like where numbers should use comma or a dot as a decimal separator. Yes, the latter issue is actually much worse because it breaks basic string conversion or parsing of numbers for the purpose of interacting with the file formats and such. Yeah, this is such a fucking nightmare. So I remember at work, I was writing a dev environment deployment to the cloud, and it was like a bunch of bash scripts tied together, and for some reason it worked for people on Linux, and then it didn't work for people on Mac, on my colleagues on Mac, and it turned out that the reason why it wasn't working is because of the fucking locale. It was using a comma as a number separator, and in bash I parsed numbers by assuming it's a fucking string with a dot in it. And there was actually a bug in the initial release of HK, Hollow Knight Rando 4, that was because of locales. Of course, because locales, so many human hours wasted on this bullshit, man. Line separator. Nice. There was a haiku rando bug that actually was because of locales. That's so stupid. Like, imagine you make an innocent mistake 50 years ago when designing a software, and people suffer because of it, like for 100 years on or something. Hungarian person tried to run it, yeah. In my case, it was a Russian person trying to run my program on a Mac OS. And it didn't have like a locale that my program expected. Yeah, of course, memory safe language would totally save that, right? Much can be said about how retarded locales are, even beyond what I just wrote, or will wrote below. They are so hilariously misdesigned and insufficient, I can't even fathom how this shit was standardized with underscores. In any case, that meant everyone was forced to implement it. Many C functions can't even do it correctly. For example, the character set encoding can be multi-byte encoding. Yes, and not just UTF-8, but awful garbage like Shift GJIS, sometimes called shit JIS. Yet functions like toUpper can return only 1 byte. Or just take the fact that the locale API tries to define the standard pager sizes, LC paper, oh yeah. Or telephone number formatting, LC telephone. Who the fuck uses this or would ever use this? I mean, I've never seen, not gonna lie, I've never seen a single system who would have LC pager, paper, LC telephone, LC money setup. I've never seen that. Nasal demons. I have no idea what toUpper does if it doesn't fit. Maybe it just truncates shit. I have no fucking clue. But I've never seen a system where like LC money, LC telephone would have been set. Never saw it. Yeah. But the badness doesn't stop here. At some point, they invented threads. Fucking programmers. They invented threads. And they put absolutely no thought into how threads should interact with locales. Naturally, they kept locales the global state. Of course. Because obviously, you want to be able to change the semantics of basic string processing functions while they're running, right? Of course I want. Any thread can call setlocale at any time, and it's supposed to change the locale of all other threads. Yes, I mean, it is a very reasonable thing to do, right? I mean, come on. That's why most programs do this hack when they pop locale and then put it back, in hopes that nothing runs while we do this, right? Just in hopes that nothing happens, you know, while we do that. So we prefer to do that at initialization of our program, right? At the point, how the fuck are you supposed to do anything correctly at this point? You can't even temporarily switch the locale with setlocale because it would asynchronously fuck up the other threads. I mean, that's what we do, but you know, we live on the edge. All you can do is to enforce a convention not to set anything but the C locale. This is what MPV does. Or to duplicate standard functions using code that doesn't query locale. This is what a libass does, close dependency of MPV. Imagine they had done this for certain other things, like no. With all that brokenness of the locale API, this simply wouldn't have worked. Shit would just have been too broken. So they didn't. Yeah. No doesn't quite work like that. But locales give a delicious, sweet spot of brokenness where things are broken enough to cause never-ending pain, but not broken enough that enough effort would have spent to fix it completely. I actually don't like no either. It's the same with get last error on Windows. I totally don't like that. But it's understandable, you know, because C can't do multiple error returns. So I guess at the time it seemed reasonable enough with like global error number. On that note, standard C11. Yeah. I mean, you don't really need anything but pointers. True. On that note, standard C11 actually can't stringify an error value. Yeah, but it has P error and str error. Yeah, it's not a thread safe. That's what he means. Okay. Yeah, even though C11 supports threads, the idiots could have just defined it to be thread safe. Even if your libc is horrible enough that it can't return string literals, it could just it could just do probably some local thread thread local buffer, because C11 does define thread local variables. But hey, why care about details if you can just create a shitty standard? He's not happy with committee oriented programming. Yeah, it can return structs that are allocated in the color, like in the color space. I guess that's true as well. POSIX defines str error r, which solves in quotation marks this problem while still not making str error thread safe. Yeah, and like it goes on and on and on, you see. Yeah. Anyway, back to threads. The interaction of locales and threads makes no sense. Why would you make locales pre-process process global? Who even wanted it to work this way? Who decided that it should keep working this way despite being so broken and certainly causing implementation difficulties in libc? Was it just a fucked up psychopath? Several decades later, the moronic standard committees noticed that this was, still is, kind of a bad situation. Instead of fixing the situation, they added more garbage on top of it. Probably for the sake of compatibility. Now, there is a set of new functions which allow you to override the locale for the current thread. This means you can temporarily override and restore the locale on all entry points of your code, like you could with setlocale before threads were invented. And of course, not all operating systems or libcs implement this. For example, I'm pretty sure Microsoft doesn't. Microsoft got to fuck it up as usual and only provides config thread locale. I mean, to be honest, Microsoft has its own locale situation with a proper Win32 API, and I don't see any reason to even use libc on Windows. Like, at least I wouldn't expect anyone reasonable enough to try and use libc for something so platform specific, because it doesn't fucking fit into any sort of libc API, right? So I can see why Microsoft just decided to not implement it properly in libc, because they have already their own API. Like, why would you fucking support that all? Especially since libc standard is so bad. This is shit fucked on its own because it's a global state. To configure that global state should not be global state. In other words, completely broken garbage, because it requires agreement over all modules, libraries, what behavior should be used. I mean, sure, making setlocale affect only the current thread would have been the reasonable behavior. Making this behavior configurable isn't, because you can't rely on what behavior is active. Yeah, I'm really not a big fan when you have to like configure how certain function call behaves, especially if you can't, affect it. Like in C, I mean, I kind of like how Jai does it with, when you import a module, where is it? Right, when you import a module, you have this situation, you can do something like module configuration, temp allocator poison freed memory equals true. So that, if I fuck up and use temp memory after it's been freed, I'm like, I get exploded right in my face. So I think this is nice. But yeah, C doesn't have anything like that. Like, the way you configure this stuff in C is by configuring the files in your operating system, like get other info, right? Get other, is this the one? Yeah, get other info. Network address and services translation. So all of this crap, it relies on some files on your file system. And if you like change files in file system, you will get completely like different behavior. And I don't really like that. But I mean, like get other info is also kind of a special case. Like how would you do it in different ways? Like, how would you do it in different ways? libc shouldn't have get other info in its standard library. It just shouldn't. Like, why is get other info in the fucking standard? But yeah. Where is it? Yeah, okay, global state. POSIX showed some minor decency by at least introducing some variations of standard functions, which have a locale argument to upper L, yeah, for example, so you can pass a locale. You just pass the locale which you want to be used and don't have to do the setlocale call function restore locale nonsense. But of course they fuck this up too, in no less than two ways. First, there is no statically available handle for the C locale, so you have to initialize and store it somewhere, which makes it harder to make utility functions safe that call locale affected standard functions and expect C semantics. The easy solution, using pthread once and a global variable with the created locale, will not be easily accepted by pedantic assholes because they'll worry about allocation failure or leaking the locale when using this library code and then unloading the library, or could have complicated library init and init functions, which bring a big load of their own mess. Same for automatic DLL constructors destructors. Not all functions have a variant that takes locale argument, and they missed even some important ones like snprintf or str2d. What the fuck, 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 what the fuck. He was so suffering. He was so suffering. I would like to know why it took so long to standardize a half-assed solution that, apart from being conceptually half-assed, is even incomplete and insufficient. The obvious way to fix this would have been deprecate the entire locale API and their use and make it a nope. Make UTF-8 the standard character type. Make the C locale behavior the default. Add new APIs that explicitly take locale objects. Provide an emulation layer that can be used to transparently build legacy code without breaking them. I don't know. I think this is good, making the UTF-8 the standard character type. That's what I wanted to say all, but almost all modern languages do. I mean, C# and JavaScript have UTF-16, right? But, I mean, it's still Unicode. I mean, it's almost the same, right? And emulation layers, I don't know. I would just burn the old shit with fire and just declare the bankruptcy. I would just not bother with compatibility layer at all. You use old software, you must suffer. Like, that's it. Right? It's just, yeah, just UTF-8, and yeah, that's about right. Like, forget setlocale even existed, you know, unless the old software is a game. I mean, old games, they depend on Windows locales, and Windows locales were kind of okay, you know, always compared to this. So it's not really an issue. It's not even an issue. There are some very bizarre situations, like for example at Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. If anyone remembers that game, it was one of the most successful games in Source Engine. And Dark Messiah of Might and Magic is made by a French studio and Arcane, I think. It's the same people who made Dishonored, if I'm not mistaken anything. But yeah, they fucked something up, and that every time you would launch Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, it would forcibly create a French locale on your Windows and add a French keyboard layout to your system every time you play Dark Messiah. So you would play Dark Messiah, play a session, close the game, and then delete a French layout, then you would run the game again and it would reinstall the French layout. I don't know why they somehow dependent on it internally or something, but that's, I think, the only game ever that had this weird-ass behavior. Like in French virus. But yeah, I don't think deleting all that would mess up any important games, right? But yeah. But this wouldn't have been compatible. And the apparently incompetent standard committees would have never accepted this. As if anyone actually uses this legacy garbage except other legacy garbage. Oh yeah. And let's care a lot about legacy compatibility, and let's not care at all about modern code that either has to suffer from it or sadly breaks when the wrong locales are active. Yeah, I mean, exactly, I totally agree. I would say in case of setlocale, I would just say burn it with holy fire. Right? I would be totally fine with that, to be honest. And you know, even if you need some kind of compatibility layer, just let some maybe third party handle it, you know, just let some third party who is really interested in it handle that. Just keep it out of the standard, in my opinion. Last but not least, the UTF-8 locale name is apparently not even standardized. That's fucked up. At the moment I'm trying to use C-that. That's actually what we also try to use in Focus Editor. C-that UTF-8, right? It's here. Wait, let's do the dark theme. C-that UTF, yeah, here. We try to load C-that UTF-8. I didn't know it's not standardized, which is apparently glibc and Debian specific. And I mean, yeah, it's not standardized, but if it's glibc and Debian specific, then it's a pretty good bet that it's everywhere, which is, you know, soft standardized. Got to use every opportunity to make correct usage of UTF-8 harder. Yeah, that's a good point, even though it probably doesn't matter in practice. What luck that this commit is only for some optional, relatively obscure MPV feature. Why is the C locale not UTF-8? Why did POSIX not standardized and in UTF-8 locale? Well, according to something I heard a few years ago, they're considering disallowing UTF-8 as locale because UTF-8 would violate certain invariants expected by C or POSIX. But I'm not sure if I remember this correctly. Probably better to not rage about it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what invariants? Is it because UTF-8 has variable, like variable length characters? Is something in POSIX expects it? That a character is always 1 byte? I don't know. I mean, yes, so does UTF-16. Isn't everything 2 bytes in UTF-16? Or was that some other? Encoding? I think in UTF-16 everything is 2 bytes. Or no? Was it some other encoding? Maybe it's like ISC16, where everything is 2 bytes. Yeah, I see. So yeah. Maybe they wanted to get standardized around UTF-32, where everything is 4 bytes. So, you know, it's just like easier. You know, you just accept int everywhere. And like, fuck it. I don't know. I'm actually kind of glad UTF-8 won. It definitely makes sense. And only now, you see, like, ranted about locales, and only now we go to the point of this commit. libarchive intentionally uses the locale API and all the broken crap around it to convert UTF-8 or UTF-16 as contained in reasonably sane archive formats to ***. This is a good start. Since glibc does not think that the C locale uses UTF-8, this fails for MPV. So trying to use archive entry path name to get the archive entry name fails if the name contains... I mean, this is exactly the problem we're trying to solve, right? libx11, when we get a character name, character string, since we don't set the UTF-8 locale for our program, it just poops itself, because libx11 and X server is very old, and I guess libx11 it uses some of its own mechanism to talk with X server about keyboard layouts without using libxkb command, like all of the sane kind of Linux world. So it's basically the same situation, right? And then he goes into the specifics about how libarchive, how did they do it for libarchive, right? So it's not very interesting, it's like gnarly details. But I guess we can also do the conclusion, right? So what we do is use the idiotic POSIX 2008 API, use locale etc. Too bad for users who try to build this on a system that doesn't have this. I mean, it probably wasn't an issue even in 2017. I don't think. Might be bad for Windows. Again, I don't know. On Windows, you should just use Windows-specific code. You should just do the platform code entirely in Win32. Like there is almost no benefits on trying to enforce libc on Windows. Every time I try to just use libc on Windows, I got like crashed and burned in one way or the other. So it's just like doesn't make any sense. Use CWTF8 locale, which is probably not 100% standard compliant, but works on my system. I mean, it works everywhere. At least in 2025, so far I haven't encountered anyone who would like complain about us like hard coding that. So this is probably not an issue as well. Yeah, guard every libarchive call plus restoring the locale. So in our case, we only do that at the start of the program. We don't care about threading because fuck you. Be lazy and skip some libarchive calls. Look forward to the unlucky and astonishingly stupid bugs this could produce. We could also just set a CUTF-8 locale at main. Yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. But this won't work for libmpv. Why? Yeah, because it gets loaded as DLL. So if you embed it, you would get fucked. You would have to do it in your main, right? I mean, you could maybe do it in DLL main. I know how fucked that would be. We assume that use locale never fails. We actually handle errors, but we only use setlocale, and that can fail. So we handle setlocale fails. In an unexplainable stroke of luck, POSIX made the semantics of useLocale nice enough that user code can fail failures without introducing crash or security bugs, even if there should be an implementation fucked up enough where it's actually possible that useLocale fails even with a valid input. With all this shitty ugliness added, it finally works without fucking up other parts of the player. This is still less bad than that time when libquiv fucked up OpenGL rendering because calling a libquiv function would load some proxy abstraction library, which in turn loaded the KDE. This is fucking Linux 101. This is Linux desktop in a nutshell. This is why the year of Linux desktop still hasn't come, because of shit like this. Which in turn called set. Just think about it. Like some innocent library fucked up OpenGL rendering because of setlocale. Because GLSL shader generation code emits commas in floating points instead of dots. Just think about it. It's so stupid. Yes, year of Linux desktop. I mean, it was 2017, but with regard to setlocale, nothing has changed. Like, setlocale is as brain dead as it was in 2017. It's just the only hope we have for humanity, that less and less software are relying on the code that actually uses it. And of course, only for users who had that KDE plugin installed and lived in a part of the world where dot is not used as decimal separator. I mean, if your software is as big as MPW, this is a big amount of users. This is a very big amount of users. All in all, I believe this proves that software developers as a whole and as a culture produce worse results than drug-addicted, butt-fucked monkeys randomly hacking on typewriters while inhaling the fumes of a radioactive dumpster fire fueled by Chinese plastic toys for children and Elton John Justin Bieber crossover CDs for all eternity. Like, that's a bit too far. But I can empathize. I didn't have to debug library integration, but I definitely spent maybe like 2 days to research it all out when adding proper locales for libx11 to focus. And now I will patch back this to Jai's X11 module, and I will submit a patch to John. So hopefully it will get like integrated into next beta or something. I'm gonna probably cut it out and put on YouTube because it's very, very cool. And I want this commit be immortalized. Even if GitHub goes down, this or MPV goes down, this should be immortalized.